Greetings, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to today's edition of Tales from Outer Space, where I take stories from across the internet and read them for your entertainment. This particular story is called The Beautiful Practicality of Human Ships, written by Farmwitch4275. We felt very out of place here. So very out of place, it was terrifying. Our ship, that looked like the equivalent of a gnarled and weathered tree log, stuck out like a thing that sticks out in a very obvious manner. We sat in our seats, all beyond comprehension, at the massive menagerie of ship designs around us. Our engineers were beside themselves, salivating uncontrollably as they scanned passing ships with all too happy squealing noises. Clearly, there was something about the place that we were missing. We slowly approached the station in the star system and damn near had a coronary failure at the sight of the bigger ships. The whole bridge darkened as we passed into one such behemoth's shadow. The entirety of the light of the local star blocked from view, and gathered what was left of ourselves to our feet. The time for fear and awe was over. It was now time for business. "York, is the cargo ready to go?" I asked. "Yes, my lord. All set and ready to sell. Got everything you had on the list and some extra bits," he replied, handing me a data pad. "Excellent. We shall make a fortune from this, and hopefully we can get some kind of merchant's license from them, or however their system works. Regular trade runs would be quite lucrative. Come on, let's go," I commanded. I looked at the bridge and crew and shook my head in annoyance. "Stop salivating and get to work," I barked. My engineers, the target of my ire, scrambled over each other and hastily made their way to the stations for duty, with most heading to the cargo bay along with me. We opened the cargo access ramp to the ship and were greeted by humans, the galaxy's newest curiosity. I put on my best salesman smile and yelled hello above the noise of the station, approaching the one that looked the most important. I stood in front of him, 2 feet shorter than him. Humans were, large, at least for us. "Greetings, I am Thrak Von of Clan Von. Pleasure to meet you," I said and raised a hand in greeting. My greeting was reciprocated and my hand was shaken. "Staff Sergeant Adams, we weren't informed of your arrival. We aren't expecting any diplomatic teams today." "Ah, but that's the best part. I'm here to conduct diplomacy, to be certain, but a different kind of diplomacy. We are here not as ambassadors, but as merchants. Here I shall... where did I put it? There you are," I said, fumbling to retrieve my Merchant's Guild license from my deep pockets. "Merchant's Guild, huh? Well, this is a military outpost. I'm not sure what you'll find in trade, but I'm sure that we can work something out. What's with those guys?" he asked, gesturing to my engineers salivating at the window of my ship next to the dock. "Oh, those are my engineers. They are early here to gawk and fap at all the beautiful creations that are your ships," I remarked loudly enough for them to hear me and for them to lower their ears in shame. The humans around snickered in response, and the stoically calm officer managed to smile as well. "I see. Just make sure that you use wet wipes when you're done," he said, again loud enough for them to hear, and finally dragged themselves away from the window in shame with their tails between their legs. "So anyway, my cargo, I have foodstuffs, some basic tech we think you guys don't have yet, or could have use for, a copy of the Council Issues terraforming system, and a few souvenir things for tourists or collectors. Nothing serious, just reproductions of various partial artifacts. As soon as my crew have cleaned up the mess on the windows and unloaded the cargo," I remarked with a smirk. "Okay, we get it. Shut up now," my chief engineer barked at me, the whole situation sending a few humans who knew the context walking away trying to stifle laughter. "Oh, I'm not going to hear the end of this from the Merchants' Union, but it was well worth the chuckle. Come hither, yon friend, lest the day grow old and food grow cold, and a greater matter of business we have in earnest," I said. The human smiled and held his head high. "I see, dear fellow, but hark, we must make haste swift and true, for those are higher status than I appear, lest we grow ancient from the quill and its endless ink," he remarked with a brilliant smirk. That took me by surprise. I genuinely wasn't expecting him to wax poetic in the older tongues. Few speak it well, and fewer still can properly translate it. "Wait, hold, you know the older tongue?" "If you mean that piss-poor Shakespearean crap I just spat out, no. We have a thing way back in the times we had an entire leadership cast who spoke like that. It was, irritating to learn, but worth it apparently. So, what do you got on tap?" he asked. "Most intriguing. To start, I have these small statuettes made of marbled glass. We are famed for our glassworking and other such things, and I ordered these little things made special. I remarked, pointing at a few statues sitting in an opened crate. Our train of thought derailed as the station rumbled, a magnificent visage of a truly beautiful warship passing overhead. The slow, cumbersome sight of a large rhomboid shape slowly passing over us. The detailing on the hull, straight edges and perfect lines, each one made for purpose and beauty. Each inch that showed itself made my engineers drop their tasks, glare up at the sky gawking as they visibly shuddered in awe. That was the real reason we were here, to look at the ships. Beautiful things, just beautiful. A stark contrast to the rest of the galaxy. I looked directly at our ship and felt shame for the first time in my life. Ours, faithful and well-serving as she was little more than a giant metal cylinder with engines and shields. Their ships were beautiful works of art. Heavily armed, heavily armored, massively sized, and exceptionally advanced works of art. "Ooh, this one looks like a little dragon," Adams remarked, picking up the statue. My merchant's instincts kicked in and snapped me back to reality as I returned to business. "That would be a statuette of the great old ones, Feck Yea the Wise and the great council of ancients. A relic of our old days, poking things with sticks and living out in caves. Little more than folk tales and banned cults these days. That particular one is of Feck Yea the Wise, in his statesman's robes." "This is phenomenal work. Very, very good quality. You sure this is just souvenir stuff? 'Cause this is top grade," he remarked and set the thing aside. "Oh, I assure you, sir, my species specializes in glasswork. We are masters at the craft. So this may be high grade to you, but to us is tourist grade," I smirked with pride. "Oh, very cool. Do you do any stained glass stuff then?" "Stained, what do you mean?" I asked. He smirked, a knowing smirk. The kind of smirk one gets when one is about to engage in showmanship that can't be beaten. He simply pointed up the spire and station above the merchant's district. It was a chapel of church of some kind, the image of a religious figure of some kind depicted within colored glass. My blood ran cold to shock, then boiled with rage. I charged him, climbed up, and held him by the collar. "How do you make that?" I barked angrily. "Stained glass art is made by designing a pattern, cutting colored glass sheets to fit, and assembling them using lead strips, cameras, or copper foil. The pieces are soldered together at the joints for structural strength, often followed by cementing and waterproofing, cleaning, and sometimes painting for added detail. Stained glass work is an intricate and unfortunately dying art form," he remarked casually as I still held him by the collar. I groaned and dropped to the floor. My craftsman's pride had been injured, and I was not happy about it. "Why didn't we think of that?" I bellowed at my crew. "Seriously, it's just melting bits of glass with other bits of pattern, and we never thought of that." I cried genuine tears as my pride was hit. The pattern was beautiful, and we never thought of it, and couldn't do better than it as a consequence. And here I was boasting proudly that we were the finest glass craftsmen in the galaxy, and they created that thing. What an embarrassment, a shameful embarrassment. My brawling was interrupted by an engineer wandering up to me, slapping me hard across the face and bellowing, "Get over it!" at me before unloading another crate from the ship's cargo hold. Adams couldn't help it in and laughed at my expense as he moved on to find more of our cargo. We came across some of the technical schematics and prototypes of some of our lesser-known but ultimately abandoned prototype technologies. The stuff we built in theory before we built the stuff for real. One such thing was an engine coupling we came up with before we swiftly abandoned it for something a lot more feasible. This particular machine was designed for a particular purpose, and it did it well, but very quickly refined the design for something far better. Ah yes, the lateral difference mechanism, a simple device designed to take rotational mechanical force and transfer it into a different direction across a horizontal plane, I remarked. "So a fancy steering wheel mechanism, basically. Rack and pinion mechanism for turning axles. Yeah, I know that at least. That's the 7th variation I've seen so far. I like this one, though. It's very..." He fiddled with it and made it move. "Spinny." "I figured that you would understand the concept. You are here in space, after all. There are many times a species can acquire a few interesting ideas just by looking at a thing and figuring it out how it works. So I figured it would be fun to hand over a few such things to your engineers, and likewise a few of yours to us to see what kinds of kooky things we can make. I don't know much about humans, but I do know that regardless of species, engineers love to engineer things," I remarked casually and showed him the blueprints and schematics. "Dibs!" I heard a few voices yell from behind us. Adams quickly spun his head and scowled angrily at the offenders. They all quickly bowed their heads in shame and wandered away as casually as they could. I see your engineers also have to be kept on a leash. You have no idea. No idea at all. Your engineers will salivate uncontrollably. Ours will attempt to explode stars because the coffee machine was understocked, he remarked and resumed looking about. I'm sorry. What did you say? Don't worry about it, he said. The mere mention of that specific sequence of words made my soul suddenly scream in terror for some reason. In any case, what's this I hear about food? He asked. Our train of thought was once again interrupted. This time there was no shame about it. The magnificent beast that appeared above us and quickly slipped past us made one of my engineers climax in his pants. He cried out and quickly slunk away into the shadows in shame to hide until the world forgot he existed. The ship was a monster of engineering and aesthetic, effectively a flying cathedral. Stained glass just like the chapel nearby, with accents of gold and silver, armed to the absolute teeth. It flew by too fast for a ship its size, and even a basic glance at it told me it could take on any ship twice its size. Okay, now I actually have to ask what's going on, Adams asked. The short story is, your damn starships there. Look at mine. It's essentially a cylinder with engines and cannons. Your ships are, works of goddamn art. And what's more insulting is that they all actually serve a purpose. It's not just pretty to be pretty, no. It's pretty and can kill you 6 different ways, I barked back, maybe a bit too forcefully. I'm going to need more than that. What do you mean exactly? Adams asked, looking a bit taken aback by my aggression. I took a deep breath. We, meaning us and the galaxy as a whole, have this thing where, unlike you, we do not have the engineering prowess to express an artistry like you. Look at my ship. It's effectively the equivalent of an enormous pipe structure. Maybe some bits here and there. The entirety of the ship's volume has practicality and engineering in mind, built to function and nothing else. Our ships have simple structures to design and function, built to last, built for simplicity, not looks. Most of us couldn't give a half-flying Beazle's bell sack about looks, so long as it did what we needed it to. This is how it's been since the start. Thousands of years now. We haven't made more because we haven't needed to. The cylinder shape has served its purpose for my species for centuries. The Bakar and their sources, the Samadhi and their rectangles, the Qatari and their pyramids, it all serves the same purpose. So, before you, there was little reason for design aesthetics, I barked. Okay. So what exactly makes our ships different then? I mean, they can't be that different at the end of the day, Adams said. Execution, you fool. You basically came to the same conclusion we did. You did so within the vision of an artist who is best friends with an engineer. Look at the ship. What even is that one? I asked, pointing at one nearby. A reproduction of a Mandalore Kaldabi class by the looks of it. Exactly. We have a ship that is exactly the same specs, same weight class, same shielding, same weapons grades and calibers, same armor plating. They would be indistinct in capability. You, crazy creatures, somehow managed to not only acquire the same practical capabilities and made it look beautiful, you perfected the art of turning a cylinder into a Kaldabi class. You've managed to find a way to turn a straight and round into curvy and sexy. It's like a blank canvas turned into a masterpiece, I bellowed, being far too poetic in my language to be reasonable. Could someone speak normal and translate that? What my very annoying commanding officer is trying to say is that the galaxy focuses on simplicity in design, focusing on practicality. Our ship's designs are basically non-existent, while yours are so varied it's frightening. And even the most basic of engineers, with the smallest of training, can tell in no uncertain terms that your design choices not only do not hinder the capabilities of your ships, but actually complement their practical applications. I am finding the most esoteric way of explaining this, but I think it's like a steel I-beam for construction. Ours is just an I-beam. Yours is an I-beam that is a centerpiece for an art museum with built-in automated turrets and air conditioning. One of my engineers explained. Same purpose, yours just has more purpose. In short, human, my engineers are swooning over your ships in such an embarrassing fashion because you figured out how to make it not only look pretty, but be useful, without the pretty getting in the way. Lest we forget your ships are also larger on average in the galaxy at large, and judging by what I can see, even though I myself am not an engineer, I can see that most of these ships can easily be retrofitted to carry twice the firepower of the galactic average, and also maintaining the aesthetic no less. That is what is going on here, I said. I let that hang in the air for a time. A strange silence stood at the dock as the humans shrugged, looking at each other. Okay, so does that mean you want one? One of the dock personnel said. Pardon? Want one? What are you talking about? I asked. I mean, the acclimated rebuild that's in the dock next door doesn't have an owner. It's been sitting there for 6 months. We're going to mothball it and strip it apart, but since you seem so adamant, maybe you want it? He asked. I stood there in shock for a time, and part of my brain just failed. Okay, how exactly did you come to this conclusion? I just spoke all that, and your response is to offer me a free ship? Yeah, actually. You clearly really like it. You clearly really like it, and it's just sitting there gathering dust, so, yeah, better to put it in the hands of someone who likes it and wants it than mothball it for spare parts, he said with a shrug. Okay, let's add crazy and or insane to the tally of things that we know about humans. Apparently they also have battlecruiser-class warships just sitting around waiting for ownership. I stopped mid-rant and snapped myself back to reality. The humans were giving me a ship because it was there, and I was arguing. What kind of idiot could I possibly be? I'll take it. Where do I sign? Do you want that one? I asked, pointing at my ship. This suddenly caught Adams's eye again, and I had his full attention. He stepped in front of me and glared at me with a very stern, professional expression. Am I hearing this correctly? You want our ship in exchange for one of yours? He asked. Yes, I thought I just said that. The human engineers all suddenly sported the same expression, one of the most sinister and sadistically gleeful expressions I have ever seen on the face of a sapient life form. Adams extended a hand. You've got a deal, he said. I, of course, accepted, unashamedly so. I had no idea, however. I just handed the keystone of the entire Rakian Imperial Navy to the human empire, as I had no clue as to just how adept the species was at the concept of reverse engineering technology. I had no idea. I just handed them a ship of ours that held all of the baseline tech components of every ship we had in the fleet. I had no idea. I just handed them on a silver platter everything they wanted to know about our tech base. I had no idea that barely a year after I had started using my new ship, they would have created a new variant of the same design with 5 times the firepower and shield strength, all based on the tech my species had. I had no idea. Using my ship, they had just jumped a full century ahead in terms of technological superiority, and their ships were becoming larger, more powerful, and more advanced than ever before. I realized all too late what that single selfish-minded choice I had just handed humanity a stepping stone to its claim to the galaxy at large, almost uncontested. I regret nothing. End of story. I'd greatly like to thank our Tier 5 channel members, Caspar Arnholt, John Creighton, Manatharia, 050, Dragzoon WRE, and Elijah Silvercross. Thank you very much.